Welcome, it's time to take two with Therese, and today I've got two cards I'm creating using this wonderful stencil. It's called the Beveled Squares Stencil, and I'm going to use it in two different ways. This was a request from Christine. I've been asking for ideas on what I can do for you in this series and what you'd like to see, so thank you very much, Christine. I'm starting by actually stamping out a dainty Swiss dots background, and I'm using one of the new Gentleman's Grey, and this is the, I think I used the Cloudy Night. It's like the third darkest grey. And the reason I wanted to create like a subtle background is because I've got it's a transparent glossy texture paste, and this is, so I thought it'd be really fun to have a pattern showing through. There wasn't much point in doing it on a white background. It'd be good to use this paste on a design paper as well, because you'd still be able to see the pattern showing through the actual paste. And it's the first time I've used it, and it comes in these little jars. You can buy a set of three with 3 different kinds of pastes in it. And what I like about these little jars is I'm more likely to use them, because I've found that some of my pastes that I don't use very often have actually solidified within the jar. So this is a really good size for me, because I don't do a lot of texture pasting. And I should do more. I've got some awesome stencils, and I love the way these cards turned out today. Alright, so I've used a palette knife to add the texture paste directly to the to the cardstock, and this is the 110-pound cardstock I'm using on both of these panels, and I've just set that aside to dry. And I did wash and dry the actual stencil in between these two techniques. So the second technique, what I'm doing is an ombre style background. So I'm using the 4 greys again, starting with the lightest and using the blender brushes, and it's a very detailed stencil, so I was really keen to see how these blender brushes worked on such a detailed stencil, and I was really impressed with the outcome. So what I did was sort of divided up my panel into 4 sections, used the lightest to the darkest, and then what I did was actually come back in and went from the darkest down to the lightest again, just to help it blend a bit better. And as these colours dry on the cardstock, these Altenew colours, they do actually, sometimes they can look a little bit blotchy, but as they dry, they actually sort of even out, and you lose that blotchy look about them. So these greys are awesome. They're kind of a real warm grey, which makes me happy. Any greys make me happy. But these ones are fast becoming my favourite, or my go-to. I'm picking them up for nearly every card. Alright, now for the big reveal. And how cool is this? I just love how this panel turned out. And that stencil is so much fun. So now that the transparent gloss texture paste has dried, what I'm doing here is actually adding the colour with the blender brush again. If you've got a blending tool like the round foam tools, you can easily do the same thing with that. But I just thought I'd give the blender brush a work out and see how it went. And I'm really happy with how it actually added the colour. It was quite even. It did take me quite a while. I probably should have grabbed a bigger brush. I never thought of it at the time, and I was well committed before then. But I did choose one of the darker greys, and then I did come in with just some paper towel and wiped away the excess. And I really like how this one turned out, and you can see those dainty dots through the background. Now I want to create a little frame to put my sentiment, because obviously I want these backgrounds to be the star of the show, and what I'm doing here is using 2 of the half-tone square dies to create my own frame, and I wanted it to be nice and wide. When I'm using my tape on this cardstock, I'm making sure not to put the tape where I'm going to be adding my embossing powder. If there's one thing I've learned is that the residue from tape will actually adhere, the embossing powder will adhere to it, and then you've got a nightmare trying to, even if you use a powder tool, it's a nightmare trying to actually remove the particles of embossing powder before you hit it with the heat tool. And both these sentiments came from the Dainty Swiss Dots set as well. Now when I die cut these are the layered floral elements die set, so whenever I die cut multiples and don't use them on cards, what I do is I actually keep the pieces and keep them in a little Ziploc bag, and that's what I did here today. I actually had a few little flowers already made up, ready to go, and then I just had to die cut a few little extra pieces, and I had enough for both of my little floral bouquets on my cards today, so that saved me some time. I'm just marking where to cut the what I'm making now is going to be the front of my card. It's a whole, I'm cutting it to the whole size of the card front, so 5.5 by 4.25, I don't know the American size. Anyway, it's an American size card, top fold card, and then I've actually adhered that directly to the front of my top fold card and then popped up my little window here. And I'm just using my grid lines to help me center that little panel. It's not a panel, frame, a little frame. And then all that's left to do on this card is add my bouquet, and I use some mini glue dots to do that, as well as some foam dots, which I use to actually pop up the orange flower, just to give it just that little bit of dimension, extra dimension. They're only really thin foam dots, these ones. And I really love this Autumn Blaze cardstock, can you tell? It's lovely and bright and fun. And that's my first card completed. My second card, what I've done here is actually cut the panel down so that it leaves a white border around the edge of the card, and then use some black fun foam on the back of that to pop that whole panel up. Added some score tape just to make sure that's got a nice strong hold. And I'm using score tape and fun foam on this particular frame because it's got the gloss texture paste that's dried on the card front. I want to make sure that it's going to have a good hold. So a combination of the score tape or Be Creative tape and some liquid glue, I thought that's going to make sure this frame doesn't shift at all. Because the liquid glue, it has a really wonderful strong hold on anything like that. And then it's just a matter of adding my little bouquet again. So I'm using the glue dots and also some foam dots on this flower as well. So I will link all the products that I use at the blog. Thanks so much for joining me here again today with another Take Two with Therese. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Till next time, bye.